we'll start off by saying, of course, you play Dr. Jonathan Banks, who's
Yeah.
quite a very obsessive character who's I really liked. But as soon as I came out of the screening of it, I said to someone, oh, I really liked Jonathan Banks. And they weren't so keen.
No.
And I was wondering what you want audiences to feel. Do you want them to like him? Or
No, I like the idea that there's a sort of dichotomy of choice, you know what I mean? People make their own minds up. And when I read it, I think my first question to Soderbergh was, so is he the good guy or is he the bad guy? And Steven said, exactly. And I think he wanted to maintain that sense of mystery, really, as to who you're... Morally, is he right? You know, he does everything right by the book as a doctor, but there's a moment where you start to think, is he the mad guy? Who's mad? Who's deranged here? And I like that. I'm a big fan of narrative being more complicated than... You know, we don't need to spoon-feed audiences. We don't need them to clearly define good person, bad person. And for an actor, to me, it's an opportunity to make a character much more rounded because, you know, no one is just good or just straightforward.
And of course, you keep your British accent in it.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if that was the character was supposed to be British, or is that because of your cast?
No, when I read it, it was written as American. And Steven was quite set on me playing him as an Englishman. I think what he saw was the opportunity at that moment that we could... He liked the idea that he was an outsider. He liked too that it made available this backstory of why he had left England, which we kind of layered in, and it's another twist in what is already a kind of twist-filled story, a kind of mystery to his past. And I, as an Englishman, recognised that it also offered another point of view on our relationship with psychiatry and with prescription pills. And I've got a line in it where I talk about the difference, you know, both as a doctor but also our relationship in talking about that kind of taking pills. We're a lot more private about it over here. And in the States, famously, you know, they talk about it very openly about seeing their shrink, or what shrink do you see and how often do you see them and what are you taking and what have you. And that's another kind of element, if you like, to the story of the film.
And of course, the script I read it was written quite a few years ago, but it still feels very relevant now. Is that something that attracted you?
Well, it's evolved. I think Scott started it, or the idea started about 10 years ago. And it sort of germinated, but Scott and Steven are really keen on authenticity and accuracy, so the piece has probably been rewritten and like I said, evolved over the years. But yeah, the conversation starters that it seems to be rich with, whether it's, as I've already said, like our relationship with pills, whether it's you know, discussion of depression, whether it's you know, even playing the stock market. There's an element of that in the film too. I love being in stuff that seems to be contemporary and about now. Yeah.
And there's a kind of satirical edge to it as well, especially in the fact that your character's kind of life is being sort of ruined almost, or attempted to be ruined by the press. And I was wondering, as someone who obviously is very famous and has had to deal with that side of things before, were you able to draw on your own experiences in that regard? A little bit,
yeah. I mean, there are certainly scenes in it. There's a scene out when me and my wife and my stepson are pounced on by a kind of gaggle of journalists and photographers that felt familiar. I think more than anything, I just like the idea of playing someone who has something wrong done to them, or he feels wronged and he wants to unpick the reason and find out, get to the heart of what it was and who did this to him and why.
And of course, you're working with Steven Soderbergh for the second time. I'm just wondering what it is about him as a director that sort of persuaded you to collaborate with him once again.
Well, apart from anything, you know, in my opinion, you're going to be in something intelligent and good and slick and smart and timely and stylish. You know, I think he's all those things, and it's always a comfort to know when you're going into something that you're in good hands. I was intrigued by the way he worked because he's the only director I've ever made a film with who operates a camera, lights, edits, and directs, and that keeps it very focused and very efficient and lean. And he's good company. You know, he's a real pleasure. He makes what is a very hard art form and filmmaking very, very easy. And I also like the responsibility he puts on you as an actor. You know, you have to turn up ready. You have to turn up having done your homework and prepared to film quickly and get it done.
And my final question is, of course, you've got projects upcoming with Werner Herzog and Wes Anderson that I've read.
Well, sadly, the Werner film I don't think is happening. I don't know what quite happened, but I think it's gone on the back burner for a while. Wes, I've done, yeah, but Wes's film, The Grand Budapest Hotel, I mean, I'm a tiny part in it. It's an enormous ensemble film, and I did like 5 days out in Görlitz on the border of Poland and Germany, and that was a real trip for me because I've been a huge fan of his films for years and years, and I've always said jokingly, I want to live in one of his films. So to suddenly be in one of his films was quite surreal.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for
Thank you.
Very much appreciate it.